So I'm back to the Game 2 recap between the Sabres and Bruins in the first round of the playoffs. And unfortunately, this is not a exciting one, at least on a good note for the Sabres, and did not be able to replicate what it did in Game 1. They followed Boston 4-2, have somewhat of a comeback late in the game, once again, around the 6-minute mark left in the third period. But for the most part, it was all Boston, for this, especially in the second period, where they really took over there in that spot after 0-0 after the first. And another bad goal early on in the third period, less than 20 seconds into the third period, where UPL was switched out for Lyon. And again, the Sabres had a late surge to at least make it somewhat entertaining at the end, and not all horrible for the game there, but certainly totally different than what happened in Game 1, where they started off really well. I would say that, right out of the gate, I think it was very impressive of how they played the tempo, of how they were kind of pushing the tempo against Boston. Boston was kind of reeling a little bit, putting a little bit of pressure on Swayman. It was good to see that, because I wasn't sure how the emotions were going to be after that insane Game 1 comeback. If they're kind of be deflated coming out of it, where they could be tired, flat foot in the game, and they were really, they started off great, and I think that was what you're looking for in Buffalo to do in response after Game 1, but pretty soon after that, and I guess you can really say the first period was good, was great overall for the Sabres. It was after that, and it's more so on, if you really want to put a lot of the blame on, or most of it, on UPL. Now there's other things too, defensively, power play we'll get into in a second. That's certainly still a horrible thing that's happening, terrible, of how bad they are at that, not just in the series, but the last 9 games that they keep posting the bottom there, and it's gonna keep getting worse for that record, or the stat they have there as the series progress. But it's more so the goaltending. I mean, the first goal, it's unfortunate with the puck being bounced up after a power play was done, and then, or sorry, not when a power play was done, but it was pushed up, and you had Anderson or Arvidsson get the kind of the breakaway shot there to kind of just poke it right past UPL. UPL wasn't set enough yet to get prepared for the shot there, and it was kind of just throwing the puck at UPL. It gets by him. It sucks. It's it's a tough goal to get through, but it's only 1-0. The Sabres are still at that point, they're playing well. It's still playing well enough. It's similar to how it was in Game 1, where yes, you're not winning, but you're still in it. There's some flaws, of course, and like I said, we'll get into that in a second, that still continue through or after Game 1, but you're still in it. 1-0, it's not horrible. Yes, it sucks you being down 1-0 once again, going to Game 2, but you can bounce back. The thing why the goal I think that really broke it open for Boston and a little bit crushed Buffalo and demoralized them was the Pasternak, the Geeky goal. My bad, reading the assist part. The Geeky goal where he just at center ice just tosses it down to UPL, and it makes a tough bounce, but still it's something that it's unacceptable for UPL to allow in. And I think that was certainly the demoralizing goal that it really gave the momentum to Boston, because at that point, yes, again, it's only 1-0, but you can still bounce back. You still have a lot of hockey left. It's only 1-0. You'll be fine. That goal right there is unacceptable by UPL. It is. And I know it's very unlucky. It's very unfortunate. Everyone makes mistakes, but you can't have that mistake in that moment there. And that was really just stunned everybody at that point, how it happened. And then not that long after, it was Zacha getting a power play goal, make it 3-0. So quickly going from, at one point, 0-0, or worst case, just 1-0, still in it, still a viable game, to now all of a sudden 3-0 going into the third period. And you're sitting there thinking, how can the Sabres overcome this? Now, it overcame 2-0, but is 3-0 too much at this point, especially with how demoralizing that second goal was? How is the Buffalo going to respond? And then most soon after, 16 seconds in, Arvidsson gets his second goal, gets it past on a ricochet, deflection, I should say, and scores. They make it 4-0. And this is when UPL was taken out and Alex Lyon was put in there. And you see the shots on the stats for UPL there. He made 15 out of 19 saves, left 4 goals in there, .789 save percentage. And Lyon was 100%, 7 for 7. Didn't really have to make too many difficult save. I think probably won one of his first few shots, first or second shot. But after that, he was pretty much solid. Nothing too crazy for line to deal with for the remainder of the game. And then of course we have the final going once again unlocking the final 6 minutes of the game. There we have Bowen Byram getting the goal, and then Krebs getting another goal too. And it felt like at that point, like, oh no, they're gonna make this comeback again. And what annoys me so much, and it's great that they were able to play this, where it's almost like they actually were being efficient on a power play with with a line being pulled out, not having the extra defend or extra attacker out there, and they played phenomenal defense. The Boston struggled to get empty nets. They were close a couple times, but just couldn't break through. And the Sabres were great at attacking the puck. They were great at controlling it, passing it, getting good shots, good looks. And I get at the point it's more of desperation at that setting there. But it just annoys me that they had other opportunities like this, multiple power plays previously, and they can't replicate that. So where's the desperation at that point? Where's the tempo at that point there, where you're kind of smothering the Bruins, and they can't really do anything? They can't get that game clinching goal, even though they're still up 2-0. They just can't get that final empty netter to really seal the deal there and to break all hope for the Sabres. And they're kind of, again, reeling a little bit. Swayman's had to make some tough saves, a lot of traffic in front of him. Where was that in the other power plays? And I think that's hopefully in going to Game 3, that should be a momentum booster going into the third game. There is, look at what you did in the final few minutes. It wasn't like they had to pull a goal for the last 5 minutes of the game, and they played phenomenal hockey. Really, that was the best hockey they played at that moment. There, they were really starting to push Boston, and they were starting to really use their strengths, the speed and so forth, and they were really putting Swayman in difficult opportunities, and defense struggling at times and just not being able to get it out of their zone. And I like that. That was probably the most encouraging thing going of the night. The only thing really, because they're down 4-0 at that point there a few minutes prior. But I think that should be a momentum booster going into Game 3. It's like, listen, you have the capability, but what happened there needs to be how all the power plays are. There needs to be, at some point, a desperation. There needs to be something more than what you guys are doing in the previous power plays, because it's not good enough. It's not good, not even close. Maybe throughout the 8 power plays, you had a few good shots, but it's not good enough of what you guys are doing. You're not being able to capitalize. You're not being able to push the tempo as much as you did at that moment there. So that's why I hope going forward they can really take that and run with it and say, listen, we have the capability, but it's more about how bad do we really want it to happen. So that's the only good mark I could say for the game there is that. I don't think there's really any other positives outside of, again, how they started at the beginning of the game, or the first period overall, as well as how it was the final 6 minutes of the game. But after that was, certainly horrible to watch, being down at one point, going from 0-0 and the first to 4-0 early in the third period. It's not good enough. And kind of get into the stats right here real quick for Boston to show you at the very least real quick, if you guys care about that. Swayman was 32 of 34, .944 save percentage. And then, of course, your people who scored there was, again, Krebs and Bowen Byram. And for the assist column, who I got that was Malestein and Alex Tuck for this one. So, again, getting to the negatives here, what I've posted, first and foremost, just bad. Once again, like I said, for UPL, he played bad. He made some really good saves early on in the game. Like he was great in the first period. It was just, again, those goals are tough. Yeah, again, if you want to give him some slack for the first goal, but maybe he should be aware, set faster so that puck just doesn't go by him, by Reeson. But the second goal is, again, unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It's backbreaking, especially for such a tight, competitive, physical game between these two. I think that demoralized them. That killed them right there to make such an idiotic mistake there at that point. Again, I know it deflected and went into a different direction than what he's expecting, but it's just that's unacceptable at that point there. To give kind of the perception now that Boston can just toss pucks down the ice that far, thinking that they have a legit shot of scoring on you now because you can't handle that. That's certainly a big question. I don't know I don't want to get to the point saying that he's going to be benched and Lyon will be the starter for Game 3, but it's certainly a possibility. I'm not gonna say 100%. Maybe it's going a little too over emotional at that point. They're thinking that because I see a lot of people saying that after the game that UPL needs to be pulled. Alex Lyon needs to start in Game 3. I don't know if it's at that point yet. Again, I know it's very demoralizing how horrible he played after the first period, and especially a lot of the goals that he let in, or all the goals, if you really want to call it that. But that's certainly on the table. I think that should be a thought, but I don't think it should be automatically an emotional, just jump into that instantly for that. But I think there's a possibility, sure, that Alex Lyon could be playing in Game 3. And whatever happens with that, of course, we'll see what, if that does happen, we'll see how Lyon plays after that. If he plays well, he might get the rest of the series, or how many games left the Sabres play in the playoffs at this point, at least for Boston looking for the series, or it might go back to UPL if things don't work out there. So we'll never know. We don't know yet of what direction they're going towards, if they're going to stick with UPL in Game 3 or go elsewhere, but it was a bad night for him, and it sucks because he had a great night in Game 1, even though he let in 3 goals. All of them really wasn't his fault. Maybe the second goal was more on him, but he played well. He made some great saves, and again, first period too, he made some great saves, and it kind of just fell apart from him after that in this one. Another thing too, like I said, is not setting consistent pressure after that first period. Again, it didn't feel like the Sabres were really getting enough pressure on, more so Swayman for this one. And when I said in my Game 1 recap is I don't think they were making enough difficult shots to test him. And you only really saw that in the final 6 minutes of the game, where they were really putting the pressure on there. They got 2 goals past them because there was traffic, there was chaos in front of them. It was too much. You're making it difficult for them to make saves. There was rebounds. People are poking their stick in front of them, trying to get the puck past them, and it worked. I think that needs to be done more, and it can't just be always the final 6 minutes where we're down 2-0, we're down 3-0. It's desperation. We have to do this. It needs to be throughout the whole game. It needs to be more. Again, even though the first period was great, and they were on par with Boston, and it had some great penalty kills and so forth, it needs to be better because Boston is comfortable playing the way that they are, and it's working. It's effective. They're good at stifling the Sabres. I think the other issue with the Sabres right now is I think they feed too much off of momentum, where you see once the first goal goes in for these last 2 games, it just changes. It flips a switch in them, and they play much better. But the biggest thing is you have to get the first goal. And for Boston, I don't think they have to get that first goal to keep playing how they're playing. They're fine regardless. But Buffalo, I think, more so needs that first goal because of the momentum, the energy of it. And I think that's more the frustrating part with maybe the team, the fans, that we kind of get a little uncomfortable, irritated because you're waiting for that first goal because they can break through after that, and it's a totally different game once they score their first goal. But it's a matter of for Boston stopping them getting the first goal because they get irritated. They're kind of wearing them down, and for the fans and so forth, again, it is a little bit irritating because they can't break through. What they're capable of after that. Of course, Boston knows that well after Game 1, especially even to again the final 6 minutes of this game. They know that well, that they are a totally different team once they score, and it's a totally different matchup against Buffalo. But the key for Boston is we have to stop the first goal, at least hold it off as much as possible late into the game, so we don't get that fact. Maybe if Buffalo scores early in the first period, this is a totally different game, and maybe Buffalo is scoring 4+ goals or blowing out Boston at this point here because of how they play once they break through finally. But it just, I think more again, I think they're too focused on that momentum, the energy off of that, and we'll see, especially now going into Boston, they're not going to have the fans in their favor anymore. They're going to enemy territory for 2 games. And the crowd's not going to be with them. It's going to be with Boston. So it's going to be a different case for them too, and see how they can handle that. But they got it. What I said, how they played in the last 6 minutes is what they have to do for most part of the game. They have to get constant pressure on Swayman. They have to make it difficult. They have to get buys in front of them. They have to have people right there for the rebounds, as well as too when they're transitioning and trying to get into their zone. If Boston has that typical wall they put up, they've done a great job stifling them. If you're going to toss a puck over them or dump it in, there needs to be someone there. As soon as someone tosses a puck there, everyone needs to sprint down to the Boston zone to get the rebound. There's too many times where they'll dump it in there and a Boston player gets it and it's easy. Or if they're in the zone, they're trying to move the puck around, they'll just throw the puck around the wall, and there's a Boston player right there. Where is someone being proactive and knowing where they need to be? Okay, someone's going to roll the puck around the wall. Let me be on the other side to get it, as opposed to a Boston player already reading that beforehand, being there, and a Sabres player lagging behind and being a second or 2 late. and it's immediately Boston's puck. That's what it is here. And I think the problem is they're not capitalizing on their biggest strength that people raved about constantly, especially around here, is the speed. They are a lot faster than Boston. They have speed. And take advantage of that. And especially in those moments there, too. I know our part is transitioning, but they are, again, Boston has a good game plan for that transition side of things here. But in terms of trying to break the defense and maybe opening up that transition at one point, is there needs to be legitimate fear for that side of things. And again, when you're going to toss a puck, everyone needs to attack. And as soon as a Boston player touches it behind the net or around there, there needs to be one or two Sabres players right there on top of them. And there's just to let them know that they can do nothing. Once we throw the puck in there, we're all right there. All 5 Sabres players are in the area there, and they're going to smother you. And they're going to put the pressure constantly on Swayman and wear you out because you can't get out of your zone. So I think that is certainly a big thing, too, is they need more consistent power play. I keep saying. Over 30 in the last 9 games, 0-8 in the series. You need, again, what I keep saying earlier, you're not going to win this series or beat anyone else if you cannot score on the power play. And of course, it sucks for anybody to go on the power play. It certainly is, it sucks for the Boston perspective, for the fans, that yes, they keep taking dumb penalties, they could take a lot of penalties, but you're not putting the fear in them as much. Yes, it sucks you're down a player, you have to do a penalty kill for 2 minutes, especially depending on the circumstance of the game. If they were down, of course they were never down really at one point for the most part of the game. But if, let's say, they were down a goal, let's say, okay, now we have to do a penalty kill, we have to worry they might tie it up, or vice versa, they might be already be down a goal, and now they might add to the lead. So there is no fear if you're not scoring. Again, yes, it sucks for anybody to be on the power play. Again, be a down a man, have to waste 2 minutes killing a penalty. But when you're 0 for 30, 0 for 8, the threat becomes less than that. Less, where it's like, yes, we took a penalty, but we know we can kill it because we know they can't do anything. If I'm not saying this team has to be amazing for that. Even if you give them 2 out of 8, 3 out of 8, or something like that. I'm trying to give less than 50%. But at least if you can get 2 or 3 in there, it puts a legit threat in there. Okay, wait a minute, they can actually capitalize. There's a chance they can actually score here. It's unacceptable when you have Dahlin, Tuch, Thompson, Quinn out there too, Norris as well. There is far more enough talent to score in a power play. You have your 2 best players on the ice. You have a great player in Alex Tuch. You have Jack Horn has had a great year this year. Norris has been great when healthy. You have enough players to capitalize and score in a power play. It is unacceptable. This team is 0-30 the last 9 games, 0-8 in the series. Unacceptable completely. This is the problem here. If you were I think the series would look a lot different. I think the game would look a lot different if you get 2 or 3 goals, because it sets the tone for that too. You have to capitalize on Boston mistakes, and they have failed to do so 8 times. Boston's been able to capitalize a couple times, and that's certainly a difference in this one. Now, I know the first power play came in game 1, which they lost the game ultimately, but they did score in this one too, which ultimately ended in a win for them and helped them in this one. So I look at that, and it has to be better. If you take the horrible second goal away, the bounce goal away. Okay, so we're down 3-2. Take away the power play if you kill that. It's still tied at 2-2. You're still in the game. So it's little things like that really, especially this game too, that just killed them. That horrible goal by UPL and the power play. Again, it just shows you that power play makes or breaks the game at that point. You take away that bad goal, it's 3-2. Boston still wins it. So again, it needs to be better there. I don't know how I don't expect anything better or more at this point here. You're being 0-8. I mean, at some point you feel like it has to happen eventually. It may never happen for the remaining of the playoffs for the Sabres, but 0-30, 0-8, it has to be better. And to be even tougher now going to Boston the next 2 games at the very least. And the other thing too, I said just real quick, Buffalo's getting frustrated by the Bruins defense. They have to adjust. They have to find a different way to attack this defense and kind of get them off their game. And like I said, when you're dumping the puck behind their zone, you have to attack. You have to be fast. You have to be right on top of them to put the pressure on there. I think after when you keep doing that, it can open things up for more. And maybe at times they don't have the wall up as much as they do because they have to respect your speed when you get past them. So maybe it opens up the transition better for them too. So that's another thing too. At times, messy passing, shots are not making the net and stuff like that too. It kind of the similar sense of how it was game one, and Boston had the similar problems too at that. But again, once they kind of get that first goal and settled in a little bit, even before that too, we're selling it a little bit more. It was more comfortable, and they were getting more pressure on UPL. But so that's another thing for the Sabres. Just some tough passing, not clean shots, or sorry, clean release by some players too. But just it's coming off their the corner of their stick or whatever the case may be, or just kind of whiffing on it, or just the shots are just way off and not there. That needs to be better there. On top of that, and I think that really is going to really recap or finish the recap for game two is that. I mean, it's mostly negatives. Unfortunately, God, the only saving grace was just the final 6 minutes of the game there, but I think I think it's big, to be honest. What I said earlier in the video, that could be a huge momentum booster. How they played at that point there, they showed themselves, and of course they showed that game one they are capable of beating Boston, but it can't be typical Buffalo fashion. I say it for the Bills. It's almost like the Bills too, where they wait till the final minutes to all of a sudden make a comeback or do something when they can't move the ball down the field the whole game, or they can't play defense the whole game. All of a sudden now, in the biggest moments, in a do or die situation, now all of a sudden you can do that. And the Sabres have to stop doing that going to game three. They can't wait for the final 6 minutes when they're down by multiple goals to wake up and go, oh, wait a minute, let's actually play our game now. It needs to be done faster. And I said that going into game two, it needs to be done faster. And it didn't work. We'll see what happens in game three. Again, you're not going to have the fans in your favor anymore. The series is done right now in Buffalo, at least going to the next two in Boston. And hopefully when it gets back to game five in Buffalo, you're not down 3-1. The worst case, hopefully it is 2-2. Wishful thinking, you're up 3-1. But certainly this is a pivotal moment here going into Boston and really setting a tone there, because you're not going to have any more chances left for this one. Again, still plenty of hockey left, being 1-1 in the series, but things need to be fixed quickly, fast. It has to happen soon, or else you're not going to win. It's again power play, set a tone, and so forth. That is small things like that go a long way that Boston is doing, and why certainly they won the game in game two. So we'll see what happens on Thursday at 7:30, or I think 7 o'clock when they play against Boston there, and we'll get my recap after the game, either that night or the next morning for a recap of game three.